Welcome to the Beyond the Leash podcast, the show where we dive into the world of service dogs and beyond the leash, unleashing the truth, breaking down barriers, and sharing incredible stories behind the harness. I am your host, Service Dog Educator.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bumble.
And then Tiff.
I just live here.
Whether you're a handler, an ally, or just curious, you're in the right place. Get ready to learn, laugh, and inspire because life gets better with a working dog by your side. Let's get this party started. So the first topic of this week is we're going to deep dive into something that happened to me over the week. Most of you may know this, but some may not. So we're just going to talk about it and, dive into this a little bit more. Basically, the first topic is what makes you think a parent is lazy for having a child with a service dog, basically, or the child having a service dog. We do have some audio clips of what happened, and we can definitely go over that here in a minute. But just a recap for those who don't know, I had an individual join in one of my lives during the week, misinterpret what I was talking about with my son's service dog. As some of you may know, I have 2 autistic children. One of them has a service dog due to his autism, and he was appointed a service dog at the age of 2 years old. He's had a service dog for over a year. He's 3 now. He is an at-home service dog. He does not go out into public. He doesn't do any public access work. He just is mainly for the house. He does meltdown he helps down with meltdowns when he has a severe meltdown. He also helps with elopement when my son decides to leave the house. Basically, I was talking and having a conversation about that, and an individual came into the podcast and was like, hey, you're a bad person. Well, basically a lazy parent is what they initially said. And they made a whole entire live about me saying that he was 5 years old and he had a service dog and the dog watches the dog or the kid, and it was a whole mess. If you were part of the live, if you know what
Something
happened.
she said was taken out of context. So what she said was that she has a service dog that her son uses at home. He was previously trained as her service dog. Okay, well, when he retired and is no longer going in public as often, it was just a natural thing that he latched on to alerting, helping her child when he was in these moments, having these moments. So it was something that was taken out of context. She was saying, in essence, that the at-home service dog is basically another tool that she has in her toolbox that she can use when her son, who is opposed to human touch, who is having a meltdown, who has autism level 2, who is in a full-blown panic, that dog helps him come out of those moments. Okay, that's all she said. And this person decided to take that statement and say that she was using this dog to babysit her child. The dog was the nanny. She was a lazy parent. It was 1000% something taken out of context.
100%. And also to correct Tiffers on this really quick, my son's service dog, he was originally for me. I got him for me. It wasn't the fact that he retired. It was he could not function in a public access setting. So okay. He could not work out in public because it just was too much for him. So I took public access away from him and he became an at-home service dog at first. Once I got Leo, then he was an ESA until my son was born, and then he started doing work for my son out of just because he knew what to do with me. Instinct. With my instinct. It was also, I trained him for my psychiatric issues of anxiety and all this stuff, and he was already pre-trained for me, so he was doing the training that he knew from me.
So are you technically saying that the dog chose him as his handler?
Yeah, basically. That's, in a way, yes. I don't want individuals to think that I went out and bought a dog for my child because I wanted to, or whatever reasoning. The dog was already in the house either way. The dog started working prior to the child even getting any diagnosis or any even the doctor's note to say yes. And he wasn't labeled as a service dog then, and he wasn't labeled a service dog until he got the training for my son. Even though he was I don't want to say retired, but he was somewhat of a retired service dog at the age of, I want to say like 6, because he couldn't do public access
That would
work.
be called semi-retired.
Yeah, he was semi-retired. He did work in the house, but not really, because I had Leo. And when my son started having his issues, he started working for my son without actually being prescribed to my son. And I would show his psychiatrist all of the evidence that my son was proven to help, the dog was helping, and that's why the psychiatrist agreed that he should utilize an at-home service dog for his difficulties and the elopement and everything. I modified the training with me, from me to him. So he does light pressure therapy instead of deep pressure therapy. He does item retrievals to help distract my son when he's in an adamant state as well. And he also does elopement helping as well. At the time when I was training Dallas, I have him go and get him, which is basically him grabbing a sleeve and using his mouth. A lot of people are against that because they feel like the dog is going to bite the child. But Dallas has always been very gentle when it comes to the kids in general. He's never once nipped them or hurt them in any sort of way. He's very gentle. And I've never thought of that as an issue. Going further in the future, I am going to try a different technique instead of the dog grabbing the shirt or the pant leg and bringing him back. It's going to be more like a herding one, but this is what works now. And I just want to go over everything that happened this week with it comes to that. So Bumble, if you have the audio clip ready of basically a recap of what I was saying and what this individual was saying, we can play that here in a second. I just want to fair warn everybody. I was in the representation that I did show in that live. I am against what I said. And it's not what I said, but it's how I acted, I will say. I was coming in a state of mama bear. I was trying to protect my little one, and I was very upset at them coming after my little one. So the way that I am in this video, does not represent who I am or what I stand for. It's more or less of when you're in a situation of protect, you're going to say things in that moment, and I should not have said. And I agree. And I was wrong in that aspect of coming at them the way that I did. And I will publicly state this right now. And I should have done better. But if anybody was in my shoes, I believe that it was rightfully just at the same time, and everyone can understand of a parent protecting their little one. But Bumble, if you have that audio clip, you can play it.
I sure do. So context to what's going to be played is they were originally talking about other type of detection dogs and how they're not valid. And how somebody in the boxes that they had up had seizures, which the requirements here in the United States is that as long as you don't have seizures for more than 6 months, you are allowed to drive. So I'm going to play a quick little tidbit of that before we get into the meat and potatoes.
I can understand what you're saying. I'm just saying it's not a reliable source. You cannot rely on a dog to make it safe for you to drive. That's ridiculous.
No. Well, according to several different states, and according to my doctors,
You just said you never went to a doctor.
when I
You
first
said
had
you did it
them,
yourself.
when I first had seizures, I stopped driving because what are they supposed to do if I go after a seizure? They can't do much. So I had to start tracking them on my own. So what did I do? I stopped driving because that was the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, Quinn, Hero, 2 seconds. Quinn, before you start talking about let someone up who trains detection dogs, right? We all know.
So that's the part one. And let's see.
And before we start on part 2 really quick, I do want to like talk about what they were saying in there really quick about like the seizure detection. They also went on to saying like it's irresponsible either way. If you have seizures to drive, either way, you're a danger. The dog can't detect it. There's no way that a dog can detect seizures reliably. They also went into saying that they personally, the main person that was in this live and the lady that was talking proceeded to say that even guide dogs shouldn't be a real thing, that nobody who is blind or has a disability in general should ever need the use of a dog. So service dogs should just be basically non-existent. There should be no such thing as a service dog entirely. And that to me was mind-blowing, and we can go into more detail about that here in a minute, but let's go on ahead and play the second clip.
So I'll let you up here, even though you didn't let me come and do this in your live before, even though it wasn't the same thing.
So I guess it's not going to play the audio on your end.
Oh, is it not? Oh, damn.
No, sorry. But essentially, this person just, was like, "You're a bad mom." Here, I'll play the audio clip. It'll say it for itself. Hold on.
Here we go.
Yeah, you're gonna calm. You're gonna be calm.
Like I said, it's not going to play the audio for your end.
You're a second, right? So you just hang on a second. If you go and touch that child and it's an amount, it physically hits you, but yet you can send a dog over to that. That means your child will then hit that dog. Yeah, you are literally putting your child's life at risk.
So,
What do you mean? I'll let you speak.
and then they proceeded to mute you on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. Didn't let you speak. There was a lot of context that unfortunately is missed because the audio does not pick up on your end.
Basically, all I was trying to explain to this individual, and like I said, I was in an adamant state at that point, was basically that what my son's dog does. And I also was telling them that the dog, my son's service dog, any of the dog, I have 3 dogs in my household, including the service dog. We have my 2 dogs and my brother's dog, and all 3 of them, they are never left alone with the children ever. If I am not physically in that room, they are never left alone. So I have cameras in my house. I have one in my living room, one in my dining room. I also have cameras in their room, so they're always monitored because they're either in the living room and sometimes in the dining room, or they are upstairs in their room taking a nap or doing whatever they need to do in their rooms. So I'm always monitoring them, whatsoever. So when I am not there, because I'm sorry, I don't care if you're a parent of 3, 4, 2, 1, I don't care. You are never going to be 100% there every single day for your kid, because they're going to want to drink. You're going to need to throw something away. You're going to need to go do dishes. You're going to need to go do laundry. You're going to need to do something. So the kid, however many are there, they're going to be left in a room alone for a certain amount of time. That's how it is in my household. I do the dishes. I care for my house. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I do the housework. So I'm either doing the dishes, I'm getting them a drink, I'm doing laundry, I'm picking something up, I'm doing something, and I'm not always there 100% of the time, which what parent is? I'm sorry. You're never going to convince me that you're there with the child every second of every day. If the child's awake, you're in there. If you are, then your house will never get cleaned. And even if, because that means you don't get to pick up your house while the child's up. So with that being said is, at this point, I was very adamant with this person, and I was very much, explain this. I was very hurt and I was very upset about what they were saying. So I decided, after they kept taking me down and muting me and wouldn't let me talk, I went live. And we by a car, He does deep pressure therapy to help with his meltdowns because physical touch does not help me. And most people don't say that this is a task, but for me, it is a task for him because it does help mitigate the disability. Is he goes and gets a ball or some sort of dog toy and plays fetch with him to distract him from the situation that is making him upset. But again, most people debate whether or not that's a real task. I like to say that it is, but people debate on that. So he mainly does 2 tasks that I trained him, but the other one I did train him to do and to help out with. I basically went live and told my story and told my half of the story. They didn't want to join the live. They didn't want to join me. They didn't want to have a conversation with me. They didn't want to do anything. They had their followers come in and have a conversation. They had their people that liked them. And I even had one individual from the UK that was a parent of a younger child come in and want to have a conversation with me and was trying to tell me, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you take apart this, take apart that? And I was explaining to them, I've done some of those things. Some of the things like taking apart a desk, I can't do. The end table that I have near my door, he can climb on that, and that desk doesn't come apart. My passed away mother gave that to me before she passed away to get into my house to use for my house. I'm not going to take apart something that my unalived mother gave me because it's personal. And I have nowhere else in the house to put it either. And I have baby gates, I put locks on the doors, I do everything, and he still finds a way to get out either way. So the service dog is a safety net in case. This dog also doesn't work every single day. He's not working 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Since having him for about a year, I would say Dallas, for the year that he has been prescribed to my son, he has worked, let's say like for last month, he literally did, he does once a week for meltdowns. For the entire month of September, he did once a week for meltdowns. And then he would, maybe 4 to 5 times, he would help with elopement. That's not like, and Bumble, you're a service dog handler. You have a working dog. That's not a lot of time in to work for a working dog.
It's really not.
That's maybe what?
A third.
A third
No,
of...
it is 18th. It is like an 18th of like their full working compatibility.
So the dog is not utilized every single day. And most individuals will be like, then why does your son need a service dog? Because in the beginning, he was having meltdowns every single day. Has it improved? Yes, there are days where even the coping skills don't work. And yes, that has to do with him getting older. That has to do with the therapy going in. That has to do with all of that. And I am agreements for it. But he is still prescribed this dog. Whether or not you agree with him having the dog or you seeing the dog being a tool or not, this dog was still prescribed to him and still is. It's still utilized as a tool, and I still think that he needs coping skills. He needs to learn coping skills as a young man. He needs to learn coping skills like every individual out there. I even say this to adults when they have service dogs. You need to know how to cope with your disability without the use of a dog. Because if there's a day when you cannot utilize the dog is injured, the dog is retired, something happened to the dog, how are you going to deal with your disability? The world doesn't stop. The food in your fridge doesn't just multiply by you just saying, oh, I need food today, and it pops up in your fridge. That's not how that works. You still have to go out and get it or have somebody go out and get it. You have to figure out how to deal with your disability. And that's what I'm teaching him. I'm teaching him independence and how to deal with his disability while still using the fact that he has a service dog as of right now. He may not because Dallas is retiring at the end of this year, he may not need it. He may not need another service dog because of but who knows? We don't know this. We only know what we are giving, and what he is given is this tool to be utilized when he needs to. Does anybody else on here, Bumble or Tiffers, have anything else to add? Because I know that I've been rambling for a bit.
I don't have anything.
Nope.
So I say for the first topic here, don't judge a parent unless you know the parent. Or unless you know the situation of the child. Unless you are FaceTiming this person or caring for the child or involved with the child in some sort of way, you have no right to judge that parent. Because I can tell you right now, Bumble, my best friend right here, we literally talk every single day or every other day, or, sometimes we'll even go a week without talking. But she still has contact with my kids. Like, she still knows my kids. She still doesn't know every single thing about my kids. Like, she'll even agree to that. She doesn't know the ins and outs of the caring of my children because she's not here.
Every single thing about your kids. You don't even know, because some of them have not been exposed yet. Some of them have not been shown yet. There's still so much that even you as the parent don't know, that you are managing the best you can with what you do know. Period.
Exactly. And this disability grows with time. It can get worse, but it can get better. It's only time.
You can grow
time. As he matures, as he gets older, as he figures his life, coping situations, their ABA has worked tremendously for him. Also, having the use of a service dog has worked tremendously for him. He got the service dog before he started ABA. He started ABA. He did a full 360. Bumble, you will attest to this because you saw my son before the ABA and you see him after. She will attest to this. He has done a full 360 since being in there.
I would say one more 180 because a 360 implies that he goes back to the start.
Okay, 180 then. He has done a whole 180 and has completely changed from who he was to who he is now. And that doesn't make me a lazy parent for having a tool to utilize something that here's the aspect. A lot of people will be like, why don't you just hold your kid down, or why don't you do this? If I physically touch my son, it sends him spiraling. I can't even bathe him without rubber gloves. And even then it's still pushing it. He still doesn't like the feeling of somebody touching him. And even we've compromised with the rubber gloves, so that way I can bathe him because he's 3 years old. He doesn't know how to bathe himself, but it's still a challenge to bathe him even with rubber gloves. That's how severe this touching thing is. I can't hug him. I can't hold him. I have to set his drink down in order for him to grab his cup. I have to set his food in front of him in order to grab his plate. Because he will not touch my hand. He has to come and ask me to touch, come up and hug me. He has to do all this. I cannot interact with him.
Request.
I can't force it. On to the second podcast topic, journey of training a service dog. So we're going to go into talking about how journey of a training of a service dog, how that works. Bumble here used to be a trainer of 10 years, so she can go more into the dynamic of it. But how it was like for me and Bumble to train our service dogs, and Tiff, you coming from, not having a service dog, but knowing a service dog handler. And you were there when they were training their second service dog somewhat. You can talk about on that aspect. But I'm going to go in and talk about how it was like training Dallas for me, and then going into training Leo, and then going into training Dallas for my son. So training Dallas started when he was about 4 years old. I got him in 2020, when the pandemic happened. We moved into our place, and I was it was end of 2020 into 2021, I will say, actually, sorry. Because I got married in 2020. So it was towards the end of the pandemic, and we got Dallas at 4 years old. He was a little bit older dog, but we thought, we should, we'll try it out. Old dogs can still do the thing. So he was really good at tasking. We started out with tasking, started out with socialization, got him into pet-friendly stores, started that aspect of it. Then within, I would say, about 6 to 8 months of it going into that, he started having signs of, not being focused enough, not reacting to the dogs that came into the pet stores and all of that, and wanting to interact with them, and I couldn't break him away from that. And talking with trainers and trying to get them to evaluate him, they even said, he seems, because of his history, he seems very reactive to dogs and wanting, and in not a reactive bad kind of way, but a very much of a interested in the other thing instead of going to be interested in you. And they were like, he's a great tasking dog. It's just that he wouldn't be a great public access dog. So then we decided to go on and put him as an at-home service dog. And then that is when I started the search for Leo. So Leo came to me about 9 months old. We got him from the same shelter. And right away, we started in with the socialization. I was taking him to dog parks. I was taking him to pet stores, all of that, without even task training, just so that way I could get a feel of how he was reacting to other dogs. And he was very easily trained, very easily food motivated, very interested in me and the needs of what I needed him. Then we started doing the tasking, was quick with the tasking, picked up on everything very easily. No issues. I had no issues. Then after about almost a year into that, that's when he started to become not aggressive towards other dogs, but then that's when he showed what Dallas was doing. But I was determined with Leo, because he didn't show any signs of that in the beginning, to fix this behavior, because he was almost a year at this point from what they were telling me. And I started working on it, and then eventually he went from being reactive to dogs to not caring, and more socialization, more getting in there. I had another trainer that I called and was talking to and all of that, and they really did help me through that moment. But then when Leo became reliably trained about 2 years old, he's always skyrocketed since. He was a great service dog, and I loved him, and I loved having him, and I loved the work that he did for me, and he was amazing. But that was my training journey. I can't go into too much specifics because I'm not a trainer, so I don't want to have people utilize it as advice, because it's not. But Bumble, if you want to talk about, Ace and Abby, before I go into, because I don't want to take up the whole thing about talking about me.
Absolutely. So training of Ace, he was my first service dog. He was I got him as a puppy. I got him at 8 weeks old. He's a German Shepherd, Labrador Greyhound, American Pit Bull Terrier. He was 8 weeks old when I found him. I was, not necessarily new to dog training. I had about 5 to 6 years under my belt. I've been a dog trainer for the last decade. I started when I was 16, and just continued since. Ace was a very good drive dog. I, loved his energy, loved his temperament. He was absolutely fantastic. In many ways, he was one of the better service dogs that I had, not discrediting Abby, my current one. But I got him, I did the training method that I normally use with all my dogs, which is the 6-6-6-6-6, the 4-6. 6 months of being a regular puppy, 6 months of doing at least the basics, next 6 months of task training, and the last 6 months is going to be public access training. He was a good dog. He was fantastic. At about the 2-year mark was when we decided to finally start doing public access training. But unbeknownst to me, somebody unfortunately brought in an untrained dog into the training area that we were working in. We were in Walmart at the time. And sadly, he was attacked and sadly had to be washed because he no longer felt comfortable in public spaces. Outside of, pet stores and whatnot. And even to this day, he still doesn't feel comfortable going into public spaces and is starting to show that he doesn't even like going into pet stores anymore, which is really sad for me because, unfortunately, it's just, it really tarnished his reputation. He was an absolutely on point dog. About 6 months after I decided to pull Ace from public access, I found Abby. Abby is a border collie and flat-coated retriever. She was running around on this road. She was, she was a mess. She was a whole mess. Covered in fleas, covered in ticks. She did actually have, aggression towards humans and other dogs. She was about a year old whenever I found her. She was dirty, flea bitten, all the most horrible things you can think of. And unfortunately for me, that was another sign that I was like, okay, I just need to focus on the dog. I ended up keeping her instead of giving her to the shelter. I worked with her on her issues. I worked with her on her human aggression. I worked with her on her animal aggression. Because in my opinion, it was not aggression based. It was fear reactivity. And that was something that I was very much used to. It was very simple, very easy to break down and become constructive rather than destructive. 6 months in, she started showing signs that she was, no longer reactive. She was no longer, trying to bite people. She was no longer trying to bite my dog. And she just genuinely was like, hey, I want to be part of your family. So started going, okay, we're just going to make you a pet dog. Well, she started picking up on my health issues right away. And she took a heavy interest into them. And so in my effort to, keep her a pet dog, she decided, hey, you know what? No, you saved me, I save you. So she started training for service dog work after her reactivity. So I trained her on, the basic detection work, on, my glucose levels, on picking things up for me, the bare bone minimum for a service dog handler. And then she started getting more intense into my other health issues, like my fibromyalgia, my various mental health issues as well. And, within the span of a year, she was essentially fully trained. I started, testing her water and her parameters on public access, after that. And within a year and a half, she really didn't even need that final 6 months. Within a year and a half, she was fully formed into a service dog. And to this day, she still does work, even though she now is, on the older side. She's now 6. My other dog also is 6. She no longer finds going out in public anymore, to her liking. She'll still go places, she just doesn't like going certain places, and that's okay with me. But, she still does tasking. She still works for me. She still does things beautifully to this day. We still practice. We still work. And just, any number of things can happen in a dog's life, with service dog educator, her second service dog, got attacked and continued to work. My first service dog was attacked and no longer wanted to work. It's a very delicate balance between the two worlds of training and having this animal, live with you and become your companion for the rest of your life, or for the rest of its life. It is a very delicate balance.
100%, and I agree to that too, because when it came into training Dallas for my son, while it looked a lot differently than training Leo, it was just basically task training him, because he wasn't a public access service dog, because he's an at-home service dog. So him just having the task training, it took a lot less time. And a lot of people are like, because when I tell them, like, it basically took Dallas up approximately about like 6 months to be a reliably trained service dog for my son, they're all confused, like, how can that be? Well, we also have to put in the aspect of, Dallas was already pre-started. He was already pre-trained. He knew the basics. He knew everything. But then it was also, he didn't need the public access side of it because he was an at-home service dog. So that also played in a big factor in it as well. for him to, become that reliably trained service dog. And everybody's story and everybody's picture looks entirely different from each perspective. But Tiffers, do you want to go over how it was like watching a service dog in training kind of point of view, knowing a service dog handler at all?
I wasn't around for the initial in training. I wasn't around for any of the training. I have no honest God input. I wasn't a brass like that.
To the third topic here, understanding the different types of service animals. So not everybody knows this, which is a given, but there are technically 3 types of service animals, and then there's working dogs. So working dogs are a different category than service animals because working dogs consist of the canine units to military dogs to search and rescue dogs, therapy dogs, all of that. And even ESAs is in that working dog aspect to a certain extent. Then we have the service animals. There are 3 categories that I say that are service animals. Category 1, psychiatric. Category 2, medical. Category 3, mobility assistance. So each one is different, has different, not training requirements, but task training requirements on how to aid the disability handler, of course. The psychiatric is mainly for any type of psychiatric issues that you have, whether that being autism to PTSD to schizophrenia, basically any psychiatric disability you can think of. Most likely a psychiatric service dog can help you as long as you have a psychiatrist signing off on it, and then you have it task trained to mitigate that disability. Medical is anything medical wrong with you, whether that being seizures, diabetes, heart conditions,
Epilepsy, sleep apnea,
epilepsy,
any kind of
Let's go into that sleep apnea, because here's what I think on that one. While you can utilize a service dog for that, I would say those are more at-home service dogs than public access needed service dog, because you're not sleeping out in public.
I know, but they're still technically a medical alert dog, even if it's just at home.
Touche. And then you have your mobility assistance. So that is guide dogs. I say guide dogs are part of the mobility assistance crew. Even though they're not doing any sort of heavy mobility, they still move the person out of objects' way or taking them somewhere. There's also other categories of light mobility.
Why did my redneck they help? They help someone be mobile. That in itself is the direct definition of mobility assistance.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was going for. Then you have the mobility aspect of them, helping the individual get stabilized, helping them pull a wheelchair or anything that deals with mobility. So we can get into detail about all 3. So we're going to go with the first category, and everyone can contribute into this, of the psychiatric service dogs. So like I said, psychiatric service dogs are for psychiatric that persist of any psychological condition. I have he is now retired, but I had a psychiatric service dog. He was mainly used for PTSD and anxiety disorder. And he did multiple tasking that was crowd control, or a form of blocking. He did crowd control blocking. He also did behavioral disruptions and deep pressure therapy. Those were the 4 main psychiatric tasks that he was trained to perform and help me aid my psychiatric disability. For my son, my son's service dog does deep pressure therapy. So let's get into this really quick, because everyone's going to say a different thing. You guys can chip in on this. I say that the retrieval task for my son is a task because the dog, when so my son has different types of meltdowns of when he is in a mild but severe meltdown, like he's, the dog does deep pressure therapy if it's not like he needs to be distracted away, but if it's like over an item that he has, I don't know how to explain it. Basically, it's kind of like when he's upset about a certain item or something like that, then the dog goes and gets a toy and plays fetch with him. Is how kind of how I can describe it, is the dog plays fetch. I say that that's a task because I still train the dog to do it, to go get that specific toy to distract him from it. But other individuals say that it's not because it's playing fetch. But I think that it is because I still train the dog to do it. And that's really what a task is a task trained thing to aid the disabled individual. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I could really use your inside opinion on that one, Bubble.
I mean, again, it's a trained task that helps your son mitigate his disability, so therefore it is a task. Is it a unconventional task? Yes. But it is a task nonetheless, and it works for your kid.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I still train the dog to do it. So and then he does the eloping task, which would you categorize that in a psychiatric way, Bumble?
I would say it's 50-50 on psychiatric and some mobility, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because, again, guide task still counts as a mobility task.
Touche. Because basically the dog goes after the child and brings the child back. So I guess it could be some sort of mobility while the child doesn't need actual mobility assistance.
Again, it's that unconventional, but again, it works for your child. So therefore, it's just, it's one of those weird ones.
Well, I also never agreed with tethering the dog to the child either, because to me, that's one way to harm the dog, is to always have the dog tethered to the child either way. So especially if it's an at-home service dog, I can't keep the dog with him 24/7. So I can't keep a leash on the dog every single day and throughout the house so that way he doesn't elope. So the easiest thing for me to do was have the dog alert to me that he was gone and then go after the child and bring him back somehow. And at the time, I didn't know how to do the herding one that dogs that shepherds or collies can do, like in a sheep kind of way, and herd the child back. Because again, this was a year ago when we started planning out for this dog, and I didn't know of it at the time until recently. But do you guys have anything you want to add on the psychiatric side of?
I mean, I know that I have been seeing around on TikTok lately is that a few people, not very loud, but still a few people have been, saying that psychiatric service dogs really shouldn't be a thing. And, and then there are the people that are like, no, they still need to be a thing. Like just because your opinion, you have an opinion doesn't mean that it's right. It is one of those things that it's like, no, that's still a problem. We still should, focus on it a little bit, like just because you have prejudice against emotional support animals or therapy animals doesn't mean that psychiatric service dogs still need to be minimized and looked at differently. Like, no, it's the same thing like with the fake service dogs that we see, right? Is there a need for them? Probably. Are these people going about it the right way? Definitely not. Is their dog trained to mitigate their disability? Definitely not. But could they be? Absolutely. I feel like psychiatric service dogs get a bad rep because of the people who abuse the system. And because there's, not a whole lot of people stopping them from abusing the system.
And I couldn't agree more to that, because I don't think that there's any real right way of somebody not abusing the system either way. Even if there was a registration or whatever the case was, there would still be individuals that still fake service dogs or still try to fake them, and it's never going to 100% solve the issue. We as service dog handlers and individuals need to learn how to cope with how to deal with service dogs, fake service dogs in a public area. And honestly, like what I tell people is mind your own damn business. If the dog is not coming after you and disturbing your dog and barking and distracting your dog, who cares if somebody brings a dog out into a public area? You may not like it, which is fine, but walk the other direction. It is not worth putting your dog at risk. It's not worth it to me. I'm sorry, coming from a person that had an attack done on my dog that almost unalived him, that was the scariest moment in my entire life, and I'll never do it again.
speaking of chasing down people with fake service dogs, I also was on TikTok on the the main page, and I was just scrolling through and I stopped on a video that said, "Watch me kick somebody out of a store," and I was like, "What is this?" And I start watching it, and it's of a young lady training her standard poodle for service work, and that's what the description says, that her dog is in training for service work, and she was outside of a grocery store, and I watch her proceed to chase down a lady. Well, not necessarily chase down, because she was trying to, go get management to, kick them out, but the fact that she was so close to that dog and that handler, almost the entire time the video was going, and the lady was like, leave me alone, it's like, why are you going in beside them? Why are you, what happens if that lady's dog wasn't friendly? What happens if that lady accidentally drops the leash, or on purpose drops the leash, and her dog attacks your service dog in training? That's months, if not complete wash of just, what you've done. All because you wanted to go find management. You were training outside. It's one thing to be training outside. It's one thing to be training inside. If you're inside and that lady's dog comes up to you, go find management. If you are outside of the business and they go inside, you can tell them, hey, don't bring your dog in there if it's not a service dog. But don't go into the building to complain about it. Call the management from the outside. Obviously it's not a safe thing because you don't know where they're going to be going. It's that chase mentality. It's like, I understand it, but at the same time, we are not the service dog police as handlers. It astounded me how this young lady was like, I'm going to, walk in there and I'm going to, complain to management that you're bringing a fake service animal in here. Meanwhile, the dogs are like maybe less than 5 feet apart. And that genuinely was like a terrifying thing to see. It was like, well, dogs only need maybe 5 feet to do anything. I mean, leashes can be dropped, things can happen.
Right. 100%. And I agree with that. I've never agreed with fake spotting, and I'm never going to agree. At the beginning of me trying to figure this whole thing out, of educating and advocating, I would say, I used to watch individuals that did that and be okay with it. But as I gotten older and things have happened, I don't agree with it anymore, and I'll never agree with it. I don't think that there's any reason for you to fake spot. I think that if an individual is causing you issues, get a manager. Get a manager, get a manager, get a manager. I'll always say that to the day that I cross over a rainbow bridge.
Record and find a manager. If they come up to you, it's one thing, but if you go up to them, you are in the wrong. It's just simple. It's, if you do not invite the danger, then it's not a problem.
Right. Tiff, do you want to add anything on the psychiatric service dog point before we move on to the other two? Okay, so I guess move on to medical alert. So I have a multi-purpose service dog that is for psychiatric and medical, so he is also medical alert. So he detects medical issues within my body and then responds to them as well. Going into, training him for that was more harder than anything else, but he, like I said, he caught on to it very quickly. And I would say that medical alert dogs are essential to most individuals that need a medical alert dog, because it's a matter of life or unalivement to most individuals. For me, it's my kids' safety, it's my safety, it's everyone around me safety, but mainly just me and my kids. And having the dog when I had him was literally my independence came back as a pregnant woman, wife, actually, I'm going to say pregnant wife to becoming a mother of two. That's what I needed, the independence, because I couldn't be restricted on staying home 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And then having two disabled children on top of that, I have the independence that Leo gave me, and now being older has really given me the stuff that I needed to be the adult that I am today. Bumble, if you want to comment, because you do have you have a trifecta dog.
I have the trifecta dog. Having a medical alert service dog, is, I don't want to say a blessing and a curse. Of course, everything in service dog world is kind of a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing that your medical needs are finally being met, and wahoo, yippee, they are. But then it's, that other end of the spectrum where it's like, yeah, but at what cost? We get looked at like, we don't know what we are, like we're crazy. I've had a few times where people have come up to me and been like, what's wrong with you? It's like, well, there's nothing quote unquote wrong with me. I can't handle my issues on my own. And that's not my fault. It's just, that's how, my body is. I have no more control over over my body than, you do over the weather. My body tells me whatever is happening, and I have no control over it, if that makes any sense.
No, it does, because I 100% agree with you on this. We have zero control of what happens to us. And it's not fair for individuals to tell, like me, that has this medical issue, that you shouldn't be allowed to go out into these spaces with your kids because I don't like your dog.
Or, on the flip side of that, I don't like that you have a wheelchair or a cane. And it's like, you don't look like you have anything wrong with you. It's like, no, there's stuff that's wrong with me. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not a problem.
Exactly. 100%. It's called an invisible disability for a reason. Not every disability you're going to see out there is going to be shown just by looking at a person. You will never know that my children were autistic by just looking at them. They look like everyday normal kids. I look like an everyday normal mom. But internally, there are things going on that you will never know.
I like to make the joke, what, do I smell autistic? Because I get it a lot of times, like, oh, you sound so articulate. You sound so articulate. You don't look like you have autism. It's like, what? Is it supposed to have a smell? Is it supposed to have a taste? Like, I'm not going to French kiss you right here. Like, like it's the bias that a lot of people have, that it's just like, what do you mean I don't look autistic? I mean, are you expecting me to be wheelchair bound, not able to communicate? Like what is it about autism?
I don't understand why individuals, I'll never understand why individuals say, you don't look, you don't sound, you are not autistic because of the way that this individial looks.
You don't,
and I can't stand
here.
You don't meet the cookie cutter aspect of autism. I'll never understand that, because that is why it's called autism spectrum disorder, not autism, look at me, I'm a cookie cutter disorder. Like, I'll never understand.
I also will never understand that either, if only just because it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't think people truly understand what the differences are in disabilities, and how they are all a spectrum. It's not just one or two of them that's a spectrum. It's all of them that are a spectrum. Not everybody with seizures are going to have the same, same symptoms. Not everybody with autism are going to have the same symptoms. Not everybody with mobility problems are going to have the same problems.
Hey, here's a good quote. I have never met one autistic person that is the exact same as the next.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people forget is that, you know, we all look different. I mean, I'm tall. She is short. You are fat. I am
Well,
big.
it's the medical community puts these diagnoses into categories, and the general public, without any knowledge or whatever, ignorantly just assumes that those categorizations are similar or fact, like they're facts.
Yeah.
That
Like
they're
they are
all.
Oh,
that they
And
should
the
all-
funny thing is, as well, is that I, as a non-diagnosed, like possibly autistic individual, and I have an
Well,
evaluation.
I'm speaking.
Yeah.
I'm not just referring to autism. I'm speaking from like my professional background. There is this general understanding that everybody with a certain condition or disability should look or will look a certain way or act a certain way. You could be a diabetic, you could have a heart condition, you could have anxiety, you could have autism. I do not care what the diagnosis is. There is such a specification in the medical community of, okay, well, you have this, but there's not enough specification on what it actually means to have that. So the general public becomes to view these diagnoses one way. And if you do not fit that mold, you must be lying.
Oh, 100%. And I can agree to that. I can agree to that 10%. But if we want to move on to that the third one of mobility, Bumble, I'm going to let you take over on this one because I don't have a mobility assistance dog. You do. I want you to go into, and Peppers, if you want to chime in, because you really haven't had too much of a conversation, you're more than welcome to comment. But I'm going to let Bumble take over.
I mean, it goes into, you know, that stereotypical thing. You know, whenever people say, oh, you have a mobility assistance dog, you know, and they look you up and down, it's like, well, you're not in a wheelchair or needing a walker, you know, or using your cane
Because I
that
have
day.
this dog, that's why.
Yeah, they're like, well, you don't look like you have a prosthetic leg or an arm. You know, you look like you're fully capable of moving around. It's like, well, have you looked at my MRIs? Are you my doctor by chance?
Dude, I swear to God, and I know this might be like my sarcasm, but hey, this is why you have me here. I will fucking record myself. I shit you not. I will tuck my arm inside of my shirt. I'm a chunky bitch. I can make my arm look like it fits. I will hold a fake prosthetic arm in my other hand and I will record myself outside of Walmart. And every person who says something that's not a prosthetic, I will rip it off and I will hit them in the face with it. You think they'd get it then?
No, they still probably wouldn't. They'd be like, well, you're perfectly fine. See, you were able to take your arm off.
The funny thing is like I even have a handicap thingy. Tag, thank you, for my well, it's mainly for Atreus, but I do use it for Leon too because he is recently diagnosed, and I'm in the process of getting him also registered for that too. But I use it for Leon because he elopes too. He's starting to get to that age where he elopes, and it's also due to his autism. He elopes as well, and I park in the handicap and I get out of the car and they see me get out of the car and a perfectly able child to their naked eye of getting out of the car too. They're like, you guys shouldn't park there. Like, why are you parking there? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I feel like that statement right there is one of the biggest things people don't acknowledge. Is people think that those with disabilities are just saying that people create problems for them. No. Yep. If you park in a handicapped spot, I'm going to tell you right now, there are hundreds of people that are waiting to cause a problem. Waiting. And they will use that as an 100%. Excuse to start a problem.
Oh, 100%. I mean, again, I live in Texas. You know, I live in one of the most populated cities in Texas. You know, it's not Houston, it's not Austin, but I live in the DFW area. You know, the amount of people that look me up and down while I am getting out of my vehicle and are like, well, you're able to stand on your own 2 feet. I'm an elderly person. You know, that's meant for people like me and veterans and people who have wheelchairs. And it's like, again, you don't look stupid, but here we are.
I really think that honestly, and this is the thing, people of the general public do not want to acknowledge that there is a problem. They don't want to acknowledge that us being the majority in this situation, we are the ones creating a problem. Why are we subjecting people who may or may not have a disability and saying that they do or do not have one? You could have COVID. How am I supposed to know that you have COVID? I don't, but your doctor does. You do. You could have strep throat. How am I going to know that you have strep throat? You do. Your doctor does. I don't. Why can we openly allow children to stay home from school? Why can we allow employees to miss work for illnesses that we can't see? We don't need necessary proof of. We use excuses, but the point still remains the same. These are all illnesses that you can't see, but they are very real and they happen.
Speaking of days off, because my mobility issues are currently getting worse, my boss has decided that next week, whenever I'm working, I'm only working 3 days next week. Like, I'm not working. I'm working Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday. My boss wants me to recover, because I make my, wherever I'm working, like something like $5,000-$6,000, a day, and it's, my boss wants me in, pristine condition because I am such a heavy hitter, in terms of what I do for my business.
And what she means by that, before somebody takes it out of context, that she's pocketing the money, she's referring to for the company.
I'm talking about sales.
She's talking about for the company.
I work at a register. The money that's made goes into the register, not my pocket.
For the company.
For the company. I make $5,000-$6,000 a day for the company, not for
That means
myself.
you're sitting there
I wish it was for
sales.
myself. I wish it was for myself, but unfortunately, it is not.
I can just imagine Bumble, hey, sitting at the cash register. Hey, you see them screws over there? Them are really good screws. I fucked up my knee the other day. I just put one right in there.
Oh, I make that joke all the time. The customers come up and they're like, girl, you look like you're about ready to fall over. And I'm like, I'm ready to fall apart. And they're like, well, you work at a hardware store. And I'm like, hey, it's cheaper than surgery. Why don't I just go down to hardware section?
Yeah, you should buy those tools over there. Those fix me right up.
Oh, I know. We have we do carry a lot of screws, bolts, and nuts. I mean, I've made the joke to my boss. I'm like, hey, do we have the option to bring in O-rings that are about the same size as the disc plates in your spine? And he goes, maybe. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna replace my whole spine, the whole disc section.
I'm just gonna lay down in the hardware section for a while. We're gonna close that aisle down, okay?
I just need to lay there for a little bit and roll around in the screws. Maybe it'll fix something. I'm not sure yet.
I'm gonna get screwed, bitch.
But yeah. So it's like, my boss wants me to rest, relax, and take time, to get my health in order. Because even on Monday, I have another doctor's appointment. Like, this will be like my 4th or 5th doctor appointment in this whole week. And it's not necessarily driving me insane, but it's definitely taking a toll on my mental health as well, realizing, hey, I'm 27 years old. I'm falling apart. Literally, I'm falling apart. My doctors say that I'm falling apart. I'm literally falling apart at the seams. And again, because disability knows no age, knows no, color or creed, you could become disabled tomorrow. It's just a matter of, if.
Yes, disabilities come and some disabilities can come and go, just like allergies can come and go. That is a true fact. However, it is not typical.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that allergies, unless they're like anaphylactic, are technically disabled.
What I mean is, like, I was anaphylaxis allergic to peanuts when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
Now that I'm an adult, I can eat Chick-fil-A. I can eat a Reese's cup, and I just break out in hives. Like, I kind of grew out of the anaphylaxis. Like, I got so prone to, like, it was just normal. Lactose intolerance is another big one. A lot of people develop it and then grow out of it, especially after children. A lot of moms will have lactose intolerance either before or during the pregnancy, and afterwards have none.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that's why I had 3 kids, because I had it before my first, didn't have it after my first, had it before my second, had it after my second, had it before my third, but my third fixed it.
Meanwhile, me over here, I've just been lactose intolerant my entire life. I just refuse to believe it.
Dude, I swear it's horrible, but...
It's like, no, I want the mozzarella cheese stick. Give me the mozzarella cheese stick.
But I guess that's what I mean when I say, like, it is people can grow into and grow out of, because it also depends on what you're exposed to, because a lot of people who claim to have allergies eat foods and expose themselves to environments where they are developing a tolerance to
You know
those
what's
allergies.
really okay? Speaking of developing a tolerance, one of our dear friends, Healing, he actually is dealing with a new recent discovery for himself. He is highly allergic to wheat.
Is he?
It's not celiac.
I was going to say, does he have a
Straight
gluten?
up.
Is he predisposed to gluten issues?
No, he is just straight up anaphylactic response allergic to wheat. Which is why he hasn't been, around for the last few weeks. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because that's for him to tell everybody. But yeah, he just found this out, and they're not sure why.
It happens.
But it happens. It does. And again, Healing is one of our closest friends, and he's around our age, and he's like, yeah, this came out of nowhere.
Hit the follow button on the Beyond the Unleashed podcast channel that is up here in the corner. Make sure we follow all of these two lovely individuals, our co-hosties for this evening. Also follow myself. I do go live Monday through Thursday individually just to do a regular service dog education and advocacy live. If you guys haven't already. Follow the YouTube channel and the Spotify channel if you are on Spotify, so that way you guys get informed when we do go live, or not live, when we post, of our podcast and everything else like that. So it's going to be the end of the podcast for tonight. So I hope you guys enjoyed the segment of our podcast, episode 3 of Beyond the Leash podcast. Love you guys very much. We'll see you guys very, very soon with another live. Make sure you train your service dogs if you have them and haven't already. And I will see you guys Monday with another live. Good night, everybody. Outros, anybody? Oh, wait a minute. Before we leave, I forgot one more particular thing. We forgot to spread the social medias. So on here, you can follow me on Service Dog Educator, TikTok. That's the only one I have. The Beyond the Leash has a TikTok page, an Instagram page, and a Facebook page. All of them is called Beyond the Leash Podcast. You can go and follow all of those on Instagram. And we also have a Discord channel. If you want to be a part of the Discord channel, direct message me and I will send you a link to being in the Discord channel. But everything else on social media is Beyond the Leash, including on Facebook. Bumble, put your social medias out there.
I am just here on TikTok, just at 1-800-GOT-WASPs.
Okay. Tiffers, do you want to add any social medias?
Yeah, so you can follow me on here, but don't expect anything except sarcasm and unnecessary responses. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Don't lick doorknobs.
So everybody has a great night. We will see you all very, very soon with another live. And be safe. Much love. Good night, everybody.
Mwah!
Good night.
Have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong.